Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to join you this morning and to have the opportunity to engage this important conversation on the role of women in advancing human rights and peace building worldwide. And I'd like to offer our gratitude to our colleagues at our Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and to Dean Joel Hellman of the School of Foreign Service for bringing us together this morning and for their continued efforts to study and share the global impact of women leaders in building more just, equitable, and peaceful societies around our world. We're honored to welcome back to Georgetown Diane Von Fürstenberg, pioneering fashion designer, philanthropist, advocate for gender equality, for a conversation with Ambassador Diane Verveer, the executive director of the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and the first U.S. ambassador for global women's issues. And following their conversation, we'll hear the reflections of three students about the work they are leading to advocate for human rights in their home countries of Iran, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. In hearing these reflections today, we're invited to reflect more deeply on the role that each of us can play as global citizens and as members of this community in supporting diplomacy, development, and peace building that is inclusive of women's leadership and the voices of all people. This conversation reflects our community's commitment to global engagement and the leadership of our School of Foreign Service, which has been at the forefront of international affairs education since its founding just over a century ago. And over this past decade, we have been able to expand our work on women in international affairs through the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security and their efforts to guide and facilitate research and scholarship and engagement on the role and involvement of women in advocating for peace, justice, and human rights around the world. Under the direction of Ambassador Verveer, the Institute has convened leaders, scholars, and practitioners in dialogue. It has contributed to our understanding of the impact of women's leadership across many areas, from advancing peace and security and addressing violent extremism to promoting economic stability and climate resistance. Students can engage in coursework, and graduate students can pursue a certificate with a focus on gender, peace, and security. And the Institute has helped to focus attention on current conflicts and crises throughout our world and the leaders who are seeking to contribute to peace and justice. This morning, our gathering is focused on efforts to support women's leadership globally through the reflections of our distinguished guest, Diane Von Fürstenberg. Throughout her career, through her creativity, her philanthropy, her business, she has sought to uplift women worldwide. As a designer and business leader, she's been a transformative figure in the fashion industry and was recognized in 2005 with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Council of Fashion Designers of America, an organization she later led as both its president and chair. She has dedicated herself to efforts that celebrate and support women leaders, establishing in 2010 the DVF Awards to honor and provide grants to women leading impactful social change, and serving on the board of Vital Voices, an organization co-founded by Ambassador Verveer, focusing on supporting global women leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs. 3 years ago, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Diane, we are honored by your presence here this morning, by your engagement and support of our work here at Georgetown. I want to thank you for being here with us, for sharing your reflections, and for being a part of this important conversation with our community. It's my pleasure now to turn it over to Ambassador Verveer and Diane Von Fürstenberg.
Where do we sit? You may sit right there. I sit in the middle. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to see all of you, and especially to welcome Diane Von Fürstenberg. I have known her for almost 2 decades, worked closely with her, and I can ascertain absolutely her commitment to women rising, to women becoming all that women can be in fulfilling their own aspirations. So we're going to chat just a little bit, and then we're going to call up our students for a conversation with them. So Diane, I want to start with that wonderful book you wrote, her most recent publication. It's called Own It, The Secret to Life. And it's a really interesting book. It's a small volume, and it's like a dictionary because from A to Z, she chooses powerful words that really capture lessons she wants to convey. And I looked at that letter P, and I found the word purpose, which I know has always been important to her. And Diane, you describe the word purpose as more than a mere goal and bigger than ourselves. Purpose radiates. You note that your purpose is to empower every woman to feel in charge. And can you talk a little bit about what you mean by in charge, and perhaps do it through the lens of your own trajectory, because this comes out of deep experience.
Okay, so people always ask me, what did you want to do when you were growing up? And when I was growing up in Belgium, I did not know what I wanted to do, but I knew the kind of woman I wanted to be. I wanted to be a woman in charge. I wanted to be able to design my life, pay my bills, and do anything a man does. And I was lucky. I became that woman. I became the woman I wanted to be because of a little dress. And, you know, because when we start, you don't know which is going to be your door, unless you have a real vocation from the beginning. Anyway, because of a little dress, a simple, nothing little dress, really, I became successful. And because it was a dress, I became in charge. And because it was a dress, the more confident I would become, the more confident I was making other women being by wrapping the dresses around the thing. And so there was this relationship that happened. You know, I was very young. I was 24, you know, so by the time that happened, or 25. So I was very young. I was discovering the woman that I was, and I was sharing it. And then I realized one thing, is that, you know, I realized that because when I was growing up, I always acted very tough, and I didn't smile very much or anything like that because I wanted people to take me seriously. But as I became successful early, I realized that actually your vulnerabilities are the beginning of your strength, you know? And if you own your imperfection, you don't like your nose, you don't like this, whatever. If you own your imperfection, they become your assets. And if you own your vulnerability, you turn it into strength. So this in charge, and then later when people would say, okay, who are you dressing? You know, who is the woman, you know, who's your muse, or who's the woman you dress for? I would say, women in charge. And so this in charge thing was always kind of overall the umbrella of what I did, but I didn't pay very much attention to it. And then one day, I think 2 or 3 years ago for International Women's Day, which we always celebrate, I thought, okay, let's have an in-charge lunch and let's talk about in charge. And so then I sat down and I thought, okay, but what is in charge? Because I have a little necklace that says in charge, and I had T-shirts that say in charge, and I know it can seem aggressive, but it actually, to be in charge is not an aggressive statement. It's actually a commitment to ourselves. And it, you know, we commit to ourselves, we own our imperfection, blah, blah, blah. And so that is what it means. And then somebody said, well, you know, if you need micro steps, you need, I said, oh, all right, what are micro steps? And then I kind of wrote a little manifesto. And there are four things to be in charge. One is to connect. I try every day I try to make a miracle. And I am lucky because I know a lot of people, but actually everyone can do it. You connect one person to a person that they would have never been able to meet on themselves. And today, through your phone, you could do it. You don't have to leave a message. You don't have to talk. You could do it. If you do it with care, and then you will make it personal, you will realize that you can make miracles happen. And the more you make the more we all have a magic wand, and the more we use our magic wand, the more powerful a magic wand is. But you can't use your magic wand on you. You have to use it on somebody else. But if you use it on somebody else, you will notice that it very quickly becomes back to you, and it becomes a boomerang. So connect. The other thing, which I think is a great thing, is to expand your horizon. And try once a week, try to give quality time for someone that normally you would not spend time with. And you think you do it for them, but actually if you are intimate enough and if you really pay attention to what they say, you will notice that it expands you as much as it expands them. The third one is inspire. The best thing to inspire is storytelling. So it doesn't matter whether you're young. Of course, I am very old, so I have lots and lots and lots of stories. But everyone has stories. And once you begin to practice the storytelling, you will see how magical it can be. And remember, what is most inspiring about storytelling is not the success. It's the failure, it's the challenges. And as a matter of fact, anytime I have a friend of mine or someone I know who is getting terrible press or going through bankruptcy or has something terrible that is happening to them, I always tell them, remember, this moment, this hardship that you're living now will be your best anecdotes when you write your book or when you do your TED Talk. Anyway, so
we all need to be in charge.
yeah,
the
but
best
we
way.
are all in charge.
But we'll perfect it.
Yeah.
So, Diane, I think from the first times I met you, I heard about your mother from you. She was a survivor of the Holocaust, a mere, I think, 49 pounds when she was finally liberated. And you told me that she said that God saved her to give you life. And I know this has had a profound impact on you. Can you talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit?
but she said more. She said, God saved me so that I can give you life. By giving you life, you gave me my life back. You are my torch of freedom. So I was born with a torch of freedom in my hand, which can be a little heavy sometimes as a little girl, but it's a wonderful gift. And freedom is what my mother wanted me to be. She never wanted me to be a victim, and she didn't want me to be afraid. If I was afraid of the dark, she would lock me in a dark closet. Today she could be arrested for that. But as a result, she made me somehow fearless, and I am thankful for that. And she wanted me to be responsible. She wanted me to be independent, and she always pushed me forward. And freedom was the most valuable thing. But if we talk about freedom, I want to say that the most important thing that one has to practice every day, doesn't matter how old you are, is to be true to yourself. It's not always easy because there's plenty of things you don't like, blah, 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 blah. But the truer you can be to yourself, the freer you will be. Because if you're true to yourself, even if you are in jail or even if you are a prisoner, you are free.
Another good lesson for life. Before we call up our wonderful students, I just wanted to give you a chance to say why you have so committed yourself to investing in women. I have watched you sit with women who've been working under the worst circumstances to help victims of trafficking, to help
Oh my God, that was hard.
small business women to find their way so they could grow their enterprises. You have constantly seen this as such an important thing to do.
Well, you had a big role in that.
But forget about me and just talk about
Madame
you.
Ambassadeur, because you made me discover Vital Voices, which is an amazing organization, and I would like all of you to know about it and look into it. Go to vitalvoice.org, and this is how the best I describe it. It's the biggest network of badass women in 184 countries. And the reason that this network was immediately in 184 networks is because it was born out of a 1995 conference of women's leaders in Beijing that was organized by the UN. And that's why it was so spread. And the ambassador was chief of staff of the First Lady, Hillary Clinton. And that's when Hillary Clinton made her speech, women's rights are human rights. And apparently, I mean, what happened there in Beijing was incredibly exciting. And when I talk about women's leader, we're not talking about prime minister. You're talking about women's leader who are on the ground, women who fight on the ground. But these women are incredible, and they are so powerful. And actually, I discovered later that Obama's mother, the president's mother, was working on the ground on that thing. Anyway, so it was so exciting. So there were First Lady Hillary Clinton and Milan were on the plane back, and they said, "This is so exciting. We have to continue this spirit," and that's how Vital Voices was born. Anyway, what was your question? Why do I care about women? First of all, I think because I'm so happy I'm a woman. I think that's the first thing. I'm so happy I'm not a man. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. And therefore, I don't know. I just want every woman to be a badass. I want every woman to be in charge. I want every woman to be, and they are. I have never, ever, ever met a woman who's not strong. They don't exist. But very often, because of a father, a husband, a religion, a political, whatever, they don't show, or even their own, they don't show their strength. And they kind of keep it down. Then all of a sudden, there's a tragedy. The burn, a fire, something happened in the house. And immediately, the women take over. They take the children, they take the jewelry, they take the money, they open the door. I mean, they take control. They are in charge. So I think we may as well be in charge before tragedies happen. So I am committed to women, but I mean, it's just not even an effort. I mean, it's just a part of who I am, and I love to trigger it in everyone. I mean, it gives me so much joy and so much pleasure and so much satisfaction, and so it's really not an effort.
So we're going to meet three remarkable women, students all, and maybe you could come up now to the stage. One is from
Iran.
one is from Afghanistan, and one is from here, Selma. And one is from Ukraine. And speaking of tragedies and difficulties, this has not been easy for them.
I would say that.
And so I'm going to ask each of you to just tell us who you are, a little bit about yourselves, what's happening in your homeland, and what would you like to see the international community to do, but I want to take it down to individuals to do. What can we all do to help in these difficult times for you? So Bahar, let's start with you. Bahar Kandahari, did I do that right? You've been really strong in leading protests about joining the protests with Iran from back here. Tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and how you see what's happening. And then we're going to ask our dear friend here, Diane, to join in the conversation.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here with all of you. My name is Bahar. I'm originally from Iran. I moved here 9 years ago, and today my country is leading a revolution, and it's a woman-led revolution. And if you haven't been following the news, it started with the killing of a 22-year-old Kurdish woman named Mahsa Jinamini. And she was a tourist in the city of Tehran, and the Iranian regime's morality police, who's responsible for enforcing the country's dress codes, arrested Jina because they deemed her hijab and her headscarf as improper. She was detained and taken in custody. And in custody, she was tortured and beaten in the head, and to the point that she fell into a coma. She was transferred to a hospital and died 3 days later. Doctors said that when she came into hospitals, doctors later told the family that she was already brain dead, so there was no chance for her to live. And the regime has always tried to cover up the story and said that she had an illness, and that's why she was transferred to the hospital, and we didn't have anything to do with her death. But the killing of this woman sparked mass protests around the country that have been going on since September 16. And one thing that's different about this protest is that it is led by women and young people that are our age, 22, 25. And they have been faced with violent crackdowns. The regime is using bullets, batons, and water cannons, and everything you can think of to silence them. Over 1,400 people have been arrested. But despite everything, all these students are still going. And today, students are not in classrooms, but they are protesting and holding strikes at their university. And at night, a lot of their dorm rooms are being raided by authorities, and they're being arrested. But despite everything, they're still going. And for the first time since I've been alive, I'm seeing a lot of Iranians outside of the country also protest. 80,000 people protested on October 2nd, only in Berlin. And we've been doing it every Saturday. So that says a lot when people inside and outside of the country are uniting and saying that we don't want this regime. And one thing that's so different about this protest is that people didn't start protesting because of economic reasons or mismanagement that have been the reason for a lot of protests in previous years. But they started because a woman died and she should have been alive. She could have been alive right now if it was any other country. And that's why the slogan for all the protests is woman, life, freedom, because this regime is anti-woman, anti-life, anti-freedom. And it's a slogan that Kurdish women have been using against ISIS. And that says a lot when a slogan that was used by Kurdish women to fight ISIS is being used against the Islamic Republic. So, but yeah, a summary of what's happening in my country, and it's still going, and it's happening every single day. And every Saturday outside of Iran, we are protesting too, and another huge rally is also coming up on October 19th.
What about in Washington?
In Washington, I've been working with organizers here. If you go to like the National Mall right now, you'll see pictures of people who've been killed by the Islamic Republic over the past 40 years on the National Mall, and I think it's going to be up until Sunday. And we've been protesting every Saturday. The last one was at Georgetown, the waterfront.
Okay, we'll go now to, yes, please. Sitting next to Bahar is Olha Kovic. She is from Ukraine. So tell us about yourself, Olha, and what's happening at home.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak here. My name is Olha. I'm from Ukraine, and I came here a few months ago. I'm now a student at the School of Foreign Service, and today I wanted to talk to you about the issues, the challenges Ukrainian women have because of the war in Ukraine. So as many of you know, this war started in 2014, and later this February, Russia launched a full-scale invasion in Ukraine, and right now it affects every citizen, including women and children. There are more than 500,000 Ukrainian women in armed forces, more than 12 million people are displaced, and unfortunately, most of the displaced populations are women and children, mainly because Ukrainian martial law prohibits men's freedom of movement, and it makes women very vulnerable right now because they're trying to restore normalcy in their lives, but they face different challenges. For example, maybe some of you know, a few weeks ago, Ukrainian government announced the exchange of prisoners, which led to the fact that more than 100 women are freed right now from Russian captivity, but it also means that they face different challenges. For example, they're trying to find out ways to restore, to come back to the society, to reintegrate into society, and also they finally met their family, but they still have a trauma of being captured, of being a war prisoner, and this is the issue, this is the concerns they have right now. At the same time, the fact that men cannot flee the country with women, with their wives and children, it makes these women populations more vulnerable to human trafficking, and it also exaggerates their economic stress and their social stress as well. And it's also important to highlight that there is a lot of cases of gender-based violence during the war, and there is a huge need to create a system that would respond to this gender-based violence and that would ensure that these women have the support they need to have during the war and later on after the war as well. And that is why I believe that the least everyone can do is to continue to talk about Ukraine, continue to think about people who are staying there right now. Another thing we can do is to support different local organizations, different initiatives, because they have a chance to talk to these women, to this population specifically, and they can make sure that they have everything they need. And I also wanted to say that right now, when there is a full-scale invasion, the freedom of Ukraine depends not only on men's commitment, but also women's, because they are really powerful. Every day I read different stories of some women being on front, and they try to protect Ukraine there, they try to protect democratic values, and other women, they stay in different places across Ukraine, they take care of their children, they support other civilians, and they try to educate and they try to help others. And I think this is wonderful, and that's why we need all to continue support Ukraine, to continue support other women who are facing different challenges right now because of this horrible war. Thank you.
Oh, how's your family?
They are okay. I have a chance to talk to them sometimes, so they are fine. Yes.
And they're in Kiev?
Yes, they are staying in Kiev.
They must be happy you're here.
They are, and I'm happy to be here because it's a huge chance for me to talk about Ukraine, to continue my education, and hopefully to make some changes in this area in the future. So they're happy for me, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And now we're going to hear from Salma Al-Khazai from Afghanistan. She's obviously not there in these terrible days, but was evacuated when the Taliban took over. So Salma, tell us about yourself and what's happening at home.
Thank you, Ambassador. Hello, everyone. My name is Salma Al-Khazai. I and my family got evacuated from Afghanistan last year in August when the Taliban took over the country. And I am doing my master's in Global Human Development Program, School of Foreign Service. The country, after the fall of Kabul last year, you all, I'm sure, know and have read in the news that women have been protesting the Taliban's regime and their rules from north to south to the center in Kabul. Everywhere, every day, there are hundreds of women going on the street, despite they know that they will be detained, they will be tortured. And many of them are detained and tortured. Actually, just 2 or 3 days ago, the Taliban took one of the other women rights activists from a press conference that she had along with her male colleagues. And she has disappeared since then. We don't know where she is and if she will be released or not. They killed many women who were in military and police, and that keeps going while women still protest again and again. And unfortunately, students, secondary and high school students, female, are not allowed to go to school. They promise that we will open the schools, and then the students are behind the school doors, but the doors are closed, and they return back with a lot of disappointments. And there are videos of students crying because that's the only hope. And you were talking about the purpose of life, and as a kid, what you want. My personal experience have been one of those two. In 1996, when the Taliban took over the country for the first time, I was a kid. I was in primary school, and after the Civil War, it was for the first 2 years, we got the chance to go to school, and I loved my school. I loved my classroom, and I would go with so much excitement. But one day, I just wake up and can no more go to school because the Taliban had taken Kabul. And since then, every day, my only fear as a kid was that, what will I do if I grow up and never get educated? People are gonna call me an uneducated woman. That has been my fear for my life. And today, the generation of my nieces is going through the same experience, which is such an unfortunate. How could we let that happen to them? And so that's what is happening. It's their basic right, which is the right to education, is taken away from them. And unfortunately, many around the world might still think Afghanistan is doing fine and maybe we should find our way. But how do you find your way without half of your population being educated or being allowed to work? My colleagues, my friends are no more allowed to go to work. They have been asked to stay at home, send their husbands or male family members instead of them to take over those positions. Thousands of government positions are empty. Child marriage rate is rising again because, well, you know, what happens is, like, when girls are not going to school, then families in many rural areas think, okay, now maybe she should get married because there's nothing else for her to do, right? There is no hope for her to go to school, get educated, and then get a job and be, contributing to the family economically. Many of these women who are today sitting at home, have no job, they were the breadwinners of their families. Many of them I know were my colleagues. And I would like to thank people like you and many others who try to evacuate women, but how many of us can you evacuate? There are millions there. You can't evacuate all of them to give us a bright future. And so there has to be another way to deal with this. But women, despite being tortured and Taliban's prisons, unfortunately, are filled with women who are protesting or are in the prisons because they they committed moral crimes by going out of their houses without a male escort. The Taliban has literally ordered taxis to not give a ride to a woman without a male escort. And this is the country where I myself was traveling around the world just 2 years ago. And my family was fine, the society was fine with it, and of course nobody had the right to not be fine with it. So now women are asked to stay at home or go out only if a male escort is with them. But women are protesting. They are taking the risk. They're getting out there and still raising their voice because now they know only they themselves can help themselves to get out of there. They are being in charge, and I am proud of that while feeling guilty for not being there, for not contributing to the cause. I feel proud of the fact that they're standing strong this time, and that they face the Taliban and they ask questions and they challenge them. I mean, we were told that this peace deal is going to bring peace. So you women should not be selfish and not keep saying that, oh, what happens to our rights? Because if the peace deal happens, the Taliban are integrated, then the country, then people will not be dying. And so that should be your priority. Well, now there's no peace because just a month ago, the attack that happened in one of the private education centers in a classroom where female students were preparing for a big Concord exam, which I don't know why it's happening when they're not allowing female education and while they're not allowing students to go to university and get educated. But still, these female students were there with a lot of hope. They were, studying, and the attack happened and killed 56 students and wounded 100 of them. Many of them lost their eyes, their leg, their hands, and that's how women still keeps going. But we wonder where that peace that we were promised is. How were we thinking that a terrorist group can come back and be peaceful and it can change the future of the country? Yeah.
You have every right to question that, Salma. And I think there's nothing the Taliban want more than to make the women and girls of Afghanistan invisible. And I think it's up to us to make sure we don't forget about Afghanistan, particularly given what they're going through. So, Diane, I'm sure you have a reaction to all of this, and maybe you want to ask some questions. But
My
I know
God,
you've been
it's
listening
so overwhelming. I remember coming here, you invited me here to meet a class of Afghani girls, you remember? Many years ago, and they had made so many progress, they were, it's a whole generation that actually went to school and became doctors, and now all of a sudden, I mean, it's just, what is it that we can do as a group, and what is it that we can do as individual to help you? I mean, first of all, what is it that you are doing to be able to help? Because one of the things that I think the three of you are here is you had a destiny that you are here and you're not there. So I'm sure that there's a lot of conflict. Sometimes you must feel guilty. Why am I here and not there? But I think if you're here, is somehow you're chosen to be here. And therefore, you can use that, the fact that you are there, to be grateful to life, to celebrate life, and to help. So what are you doing to help, and what can we do?
Well, I have been really trying, for me, this is the first time I'm really talking in public about this issue. I try to stay away from talking about it in public or trying to get into my activist mode, because I myself had to get my life together. So yeah, I'm trying to help myself right now, but I'm hoping that I slowly, as I heal myself, find the way to also help them. And I don't know how I'll be able to help them, because I also at the same time think I am very privileged sitting here. Look at me, I'm in Georgetown, and one of the top schools and a good program with a group of really nice people, but they have to deal with that experience that I had every day. And so I'm not sure how I'm gonna help them. I just know that I want to heal and let myself, let the anger that I have calm down a bit, so then I can see things more clearly and be able to find a way to help. How you all can help, I think, first of all, to you as individual, thank you so much for being so involved with the evacuation process and with the Afghan women in general. I would like to appreciate that, and I also would like to acknowledge the Iranian women's contribution and the way they have been inclusive and their protests of talking about both, not just Iranian women, but Afghan women, and fighting that fight together with us, then fighting their own fight and we fighting our own fight. So I think that is one positive thing coming out of this chaotic situation in both countries. For the world and for everybody else as a group, I think, first of all, we would like to not be seen as victims. I have hated that for years, and the looks in people's eyes and that feeling of sympathy. I'd rather have more empathy than the sympathy and being seen as a victim of all this. If there's anything that we're not victims. Yes, we have a lot of struggles, but maybe you could rather acknowledge the struggles and try to help us deal with the struggles. And how you can help us to deal with our struggles is to echo our voices and, not having that savior face, but rather having a friend's, relationship with us and standing beside us and repeating what we are saying rather than putting words in our mouth. Unfortunately, it has happened a lot, but I do see it is changing nowadays, and it is a good sign. But I just think that you all should know our fight is not just about the way we wear clothes or like the hijab. Yes, we shouldn't have to wear what we don't want to, and it's about the right to having a choice, the right to deciding for ourselves, and the right to living a free life, the right to living a normal life like a man is. So it's as simple as that, and I think you can be good listeners of, like, you know, listening to the stories and then coming along. And that concept of sisterhood we had, I don't see it a lot. Not saying it specifically here, but around the world. We haven't seen a lot from the region, from women in the region, really, you know, gathering to protest against what's happening there, right? But then we feminists were talking about sisterhood and how, like, the regions should be standing together, and then all the other countries standing with women in other countries not there at all. But yeah, I don't want to make this very long, but I think it's very easy to help. Just listen and come along and try to keep talking to people about this, that there is a girl in a far province in Afghanistan who is very young, whose only hope is to go to school, and her only excitement in life is to go to school, but she can't.
No, I'm so happy that you mustered the strength to come here today and to talk to us, because I know it's been hard. And I just want to say that at the Institute, for any of the students, we have a major initiative called Forward Afghan Women, with many Afghan women working on it, many, many projects. So if you want to become engaged, please do so. Diane, do you want to say anything about our sisters in Iran or Ukraine?
I mean, you know, the idea that little girls cannot, you know, I mean, you cannot go to school and you cannot learn, and it's just beyond. And I do think that in order to be able to deal with that, you have to hope. But hope is such a passive and annoying word. You know, you just have to believe. And I think I'm so glad you said that. I first have to take care of me, because it's when you find your own strength that you can help others. And as I said, if you're true to yourself, if you know, then you are free, even if you're not free. And so I think you are in the right direction for sure. Do you write your diary?
I'll start from today on, I promise.
Good. I think writing your diary, and that goes for everything and everyone, right? I cannot tell you how many diaries I've given to people. I've kept my diary all my life. I never look back, and they're not that interesting, but it's that communion with yourself, and that, you know, if you write, I hope you write with ink and in a book. That, you know, I think it's very helpful. Even if what you write is not meaningful, I think it's helpful, because it establishes the relationship you have with yourself. And my mother, at age 22, she went to a death camp, and she ended up not dying. She was working. She was in a slave camp. She didn't have a bed. You know, she slept with rats on a piece of wood for 14 months, and she had very little chance to survive, but she did survive. And so you have to believe, and you have to build that, because the relationship you have with yourself is your own strength, and it is the shelter where you get strength. You can really only get strength from yourself, I think. What do you think?
I think that's true, because as you said, you need to care about your own life to be able to care about others. And this is something I think a lot in Ukraine right now, because many people, many women, after they've been through something, they take time to kind of reflects the situation, and then they find strength to talk about this, to address this issue, to inform people about these situations. For example, recently I've heard a story of a girl, she lost both of her legs, and she came to another country to care about her own health, but then she started talking about what happened to her, how that happened, and like what she plans to do in Ukraine after she comes back home. And I think this is a powerful story, because people have a chance to hear about what happens in Ukraine, but at the same time they have a chance to see that people want to come back and they want to help their country. So I definitely agree with you.
And another trick, I think, is to try to practice gratitude. You know, gratitude that we're all here today, that the sun is shining, that we are free somehow. And when I say that, I say, well, what about that one who is over there? Well, you know what? She can also look at the rose in Isfahan, and she can, I do believe that we have to try to look for the tiny little bit of light wherever it is, and even a tiny little dot of life, and build around the light, and grow the light, and cherish the light, and share the light, because at the end, it's always the light that will push the darkness away. And you are all of you in your country, you're living enormous power of darkness. And so we have to try to believe in the light and promote the light. And I don't know, that's all I can say.
Well, that's very profound, so it's important to say it. We're going to take some questions from all of you, and you can address them to Diane or to your fellow students. We don't have that much time, so I think there are roving microphones. Put your hands up. There's over here. And in the, yes. Tell us who you are and what school you're in, please.
Good morning. I'm Gabrielle Tapaccio. I'm in the Masters of Public Policy program. I just have a question for you, Ms. Diane. Do you have any tips and guidance for women working in male-dominated fields?
I mean, every field is dominated by, okay, I'm going to try this. First of all, focus on intention. Think about the word intention. You know, my Tai Chi teacher taught me, I love doing Tai Chi even though I stopped. And he said, if you focus on power, you get hurt. If you focus on energy, you procrastinate. But if you focus on intention, you know, then you get the power and the energy. So first you have to focus on what you want to do, right? And then that is actually, and you have to make time for it. You have to empty the corridor of your thoughts so that you could really think about the intention of where you want to go. And then after that, you just go for it. And I came up with these two words, which I think, solution, seduction. Solution is about focusing, and it's not one big solution, it's a lot of small solutions. Always focus on the solution. Women are good at finding solutions. And once you have the solution, you use seduction. And that doesn't mean show your legs. even though if you have good legs, you could show them. But it's about presenting your solution in a way that is not conflictual and that others will somehow think it's their idea or their advantage. That's the only advice I can give you.
Not bad advice. Anyone else down there?
Hi, I'm a second-year master's student, getting a master's student in public policy, but I also studied fashion media at SMU in Dallas. So I'm really into the fashion industry, and right now a lot of the conflicts around, like in Iran and Afghanistan, are like involve women's fashion. Like they're either mandated or heavily, almost mandated to wear certain things. What role do you think fashion plays in revolutions, and how can the current fashion industry assist women in their journeys to gain independence?
I think fashion is it's a zeitgeist. First of all, fashion is not only about clothes. Fashion is about everything. It's the zeitgeist. It's the trend. It's what people like to eat all of a sudden. All of a sudden, everyone wears combat boots. It's really not the designers that decide that. It comes from, from the streets. And then the designers who are talented, they understand what people want to wear and wear it. So, what can I say? I created a little dress that became a uniform, and somehow it became a symbol of women, liberation of women. But I mean, I didn't intend that. It happened, So yes, I created the wrap dress, but truly the wrap dress created me. So fashion is yes, it's a reflection. After the war, they didn't have very much money and fabric, so all of a sudden the skirt became shorter because they didn't have a lot of fabric. It's all of those things that reflect what is happening to the world. So if you are interested in fashion, you have to observe what is going on and try to give people what they want.
We have one there, one here, and one here.
Right there,
So
the
we'll do,
second lady.
yeah, 3, and then we'll close with those 3. So maybe,
I'm Farima Mostofi, Director of the Persian Studies Program here. Thank you very much for organizing this program. My question is to our wonderful students, how the faculty and students of this university can help you and can raise your voice. Thank you.
Bahar, since she's the professor of Persian studies, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. I've been waiting for a statement from Georgetown University for the past 2 months. And every time I receive an email from the university that says, we stand, I'm like, we stand with who? And then I say, okay, it's not Iran. And I know Dean Hellman, you sent a statement to SFS students, and I'm not in the SFS school, so my friend had to forward that statement to me. But I'm still waiting for a university-wide action. And that's so important because a lot of Iranian students here right now have to go about school and life while their country is on fire. And a lot of students here have family back home, have friends at home. And I receive messages every single day from people inside the country, from my friends, from my cousins, and from my dad. And it is hard to go about life when your phone is going off with messages about people getting killed. And 2 weeks ago, I heard the song that has become the anthem of the movement being played in the ICC in one of the classes. And I got so excited, I literally ran to the class to see what class is playing this song. Because it's so important to talk about this revolution so that when students go into their work field, they know that this is something that's important that they need to talk about. When we talk about certain issues, when we talk about invasions and wars, but we don't talk about revolutions and movements, we are telling students what topic is more important and what should be their priority. And so I think it's so important for professors to acknowledge that their students may not be doing well right now, to show support and ask, how can I help you? And it is so important for the university to acknowledge that, especially Georgetown, that we are in DC. We have so many connections to lawmakers, to people who have power in this world. And everything is about solutions, and we have the power to come up with solutions. We have the power to sit around a table and say, okay, what can we do to help Iran? Let's organize something for lawmakers to come together and talk, and let's organize something for the activists in the community, and ask them how we can support their work. And that's so important. And at the same time, it is important to show support to those students who are hoping to apply to Georgetown from Iran, who will not be able to do that anymore right now. And so, and I feel like actions speak louder than words, but I have neither seen action nor words from a lot of Georgetown members and a lot of institutions around the world. And so I hope that we can acknowledge that our countries are not just case studies for terrorism and for invasions and refugee crises. We can also talk about our movements and our thought leaders who are being jailed right now, our musicians who are being sentenced to execution, sentenced to death just because they are singing about freedom. So I think it is really important to talk about these countries, talk about Iran, Afghanistan, and Ukraine, without just always focusing on the bad actors, but also talking about the people of the countries. And because, and especially for Iran, because the freedom of Iran means the freedom of Afghanistan, and it means the freedom of the Middle East. And I mean that from both as an Iranian and as someone who studies politics and foreign policy. So it is so important to support this revolution in Iran, because it is going to affect the whole world. The Islamic Republic is not just killing people inside the country, they're killing people in the region, Syrians, Ukrainians. They have sent weapons to Russia to attack Ukrainians. So they are threatening everyone's freedom and life. So it is so important to talk about that and ensure that these actors are not just becoming case studies for things, but they're also talked about in connection to how people are finding solutions and rising up against them.
Yeah. So I think there was a question here, there, and then we'll take that one and we'll have to.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Mackenzie Glanville. I'm a junior in the School of Foreign Service, and my question is for Diane Von Fürstenberg. So thinking about how you've empowered women and minorities through your designs as well as the DVF Awards, do you see this as a trend generally in the fashion industry? And if so, how can we expect that industry to empower women from all different backgrounds and from around the world?
Well, right now, I mean, the idea that we can talk about that as a trend, but you should take advantage of it, for sure. I mean, I've been saying this for 50 years. And you know, when you repeat the same thing in your family, they get bored. But when you repeat the same thing outside, it becomes authenticity. So what? What? Anyway, so I think that it doesn't matter if people do it for marketing or if they do it for the right reason, as long as they do it, right? And again, it's not about being aggressive. It's not about being conflictual. It's about being able to be who you are and being able to be educated and being able to, you know, to dress and to be you. I think that is the revolution. And I think that is the common ground that we have to fight for.
And our last question, it was up here. Someone had.
Hello, I'm Zarmotik. I'm from Indonesia, and I'm a master's student in communication, culture, and technology. My question is actually for Ms. Von Fürstenberg. You talk a lot about purpose. Can I ask you, from your experience and from your perspective, how did you first came up on something and be like, oh, this is my purpose, and I want to commit to that for the rest of my life?
Oh, I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, like everybody else, I wake up in some mornings and I feel like a total loser. I mean, it's not like, oh, you know. I mean, when you are under violence, your purpose is to get out, you know, when you're being, when you're being sanctioned, that's your purpose. My purpose, I think, I know, I have an answer. I think my purpose, I was not supposed to be alive. The fact that my mother survived, when she survived, she was a skeleton in a field of ashes. She weighed 49 pounds. She wasn't supposed to be alive, but she was. She went back home. Her parents couldn't believe that she was home. Her mother fed her like a little bird every 10 minutes, so she gained her weight. Her fiancé came back from Switzerland. After 6 months, she was normal. They got married, and the doctor said, you have to wait at least 3 years before you have a child, because you won't make it, and your child will not be normal. And 9 months later, I was born. And I was not normal. and so, but the point is that now that I'm much older, when I think about my birth, I realize that because my birth was a miracle, I had already won the minute I was born. I was a shoot of green in the field of ashes. And so my purpose, I think, has been and will be until I die, to honor life and to be grateful for life. I've never said this before like that.
I can't think of better words to close this discussion with. Thank you for that, and thank you to the wonderful students. And we'll all do our part.
And you're very lucky to be in this wonderful school.
I'll stay here for a moment. I have a surprise, and I know DVF hates surprises, but I hope she'll bear with this. Diane Von Fürstenberg is known for many achievements. She is a successful fashion designer, businesswoman whose brand is recognized around the world. She's known for having created the iconic wrap dress, which continues to be a favorite of women decades since its creation. She's an impactful philanthropist who cares about the environment, history, New York, and more. She's generously supported the reclamation of High Line, an elevated freight rail line transformed into a beautiful, beautiful public park on Manhattan West Side. If you haven't been there, you should go, with wonderful art exhibitions. As a member of the board of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation, she led a massive fundraising campaign to build the new Statue of Liberty Museum, one of America's greatest symbols of freedom. DVF, as an immigrant herself, recognizes how Lady Liberty has inspired generations. She's also a humanitarian. Here at Georgetown, she is generously supporting Father Dupois's work on the roots of the Holocaust and genocide. Students travel with him to interview survivors and learn how local populations pursued mass killings in villages and towns. His work helps us understand the sources of mass violence around the world, which we've seen in Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, Myanmar, against the Yazidis in Iraq, against the Uyghurs in China, and so many other places where atrocities of this magnitude are being committed to this day. I might add that sexual violence against women during war and genocide continues, and rape is being used as a tactic of war and genocide. But today, we here want to honor Diane for her exceptional contributions to advancing progress for women. She's played an indispensable role in the development of a leading NGO, Vital Voices, which is dedicated to empowering emerging women leaders globally. She's chaired the campaign for its new headquarters for women's leadership, and even designed years ago its logo, Invest in Women, Improve the World. I know firsthand how dedicated she's been to supporting the vital voices that are nurtured around the world who are fighting human trafficking, growing economies through entrepreneurship, and becoming impactful leaders. On International Women's Day annually, she hosts events to highlight issues that continue to affect women and ensures that a percentage of her sales from the DVF business goes to support We Empower, a global competition for social entrepreneurs who are advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Through the foundation, she has created the DVF Awards to honor and provide grants to extraordinary women who have demonstrated courage and leadership as change makers, women who are truly making a difference. The award has put a spotlight on them, some well-known, others not, and their incredible work. She is also committed to the power of mentorship, and she has been unstinting in her dedication to mentoring women from all walks of life. She launched the In Charge movement to serve as a platform to help women be what they want to be, to use their individual voices, experiences, knowledge, and connections to help all women to be in charge. In charge, not as an aggressive statement, but to be confident and true to themselves. And as she wrote in her recent book, Own It, which we've heard about today, she calls it the secret to life, and that is to be accepting and standing for who we are. She said, when we own our imperfections, they become our assets. When we own our vulnerabilities, they become our strength. Being in charge is the shelter we carry, the home inside ourselves. Once we own it, we are able to connect, expand, inspire, and advocate. And now to the citation for an award we're about to present to you, Diane. For her commitment to women manifested in countless ways, from her support for emerging women leaders, those vital voices around the globe, to a commitment to mentoring, to putting a spotlight on women's achievements through the DVF Awards, for using her global celebrity business and brand to empower women everywhere, for serving as a role model for women's leadership, and for her dedication, generosity, and humanitarian spirit. The Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security is proud to present its 2022 International Trailblazer Award to Diane Von Fürstenberg.
And then let's have the students come on up as well. Oh, yes, come.
Can we all slide?
such a nice speech. I like what you wrote. We have to keep it.
All right, let me just close our program and thank everybody for coming. Please go with the inspiration you heard today. And I want to thank all those who made this event possible, Sarah, Anna, Marie, and all of you who've been engaged. So thank you all. And thank you, Diane. Thank you, wonderful students.
And be,
Thank you,
be
Mr.
grateful
President
to be in
and our dean.
this college. Be grateful to be here and make something of your life. You are all leaders, and you're all going to make a difference. So enjoy.